It's not letting me do a full screen for some reason.
It is a full screen, Peggy.
It looks correct now.
It is.
Oh, because it's showing me like weird little.
Yeah, no, you're good.
All right, so welcome everybody to the Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, May 11th, and please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the agenda. And I guess next item on the agenda is, may I get a motion to approve the minutes of April 26, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, great. Any discussion, changes, amendments?
All
Nope.
good.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, great. Moving on to first Selectwoman's update. Real quickly, before I get into the American Rescue Plan, I just want to provide a couple of different things. The town will be moving to have our offices open 5 days a week. No appointments required, although we're encouraging people to make appointments, and that'll be on May 24th. Right now, we've been open to the general public, just walk-ins on Mondays and Wednesdays. People have been generally very good with that, I think, and we're ready to go 5 days a week after the expiration of the declaration of emergency. So starting May 24th, 5 days a week, we'll be kind of back to normal at Town Hall. But once again, we continue to encourage people to use online services, which I think has been really efficient and people have gotten used to and starting to like using online services, and just kind of reserve your visits to Town Hall for necessary business. And then secondly, I just wanted to also update the public that the Island Avenue request for proposals was published last week. And so that has gone out to the development community as well as to the school community. And proposals will be due by the end of June. And then with public presentation starting in July, if we receive any proposals. So I'll at our next meeting kind of update on the timeline and all that, just to get people more in that zone. But just wanted to make the public aware that that had been launched. And then finally, the American Rescue Plan. I know there's been a lot of discussion about this, and so I just wanted to spend a few seconds on this. There'll be a lot more conversation over the summer about this, but basically this is part of a massive bill that was passed earlier this year by the federal government to provide funding to help people get back on track after coronavirus. And what was unique about this is that specifically, since Madison or the state of Connecticut does not have a county government structure, a lot of times we would lose out on federal funding. Funding would go to either the states directly and would have money earmarked for county government, but not necessarily town government. And so I have to give a lot of credit to our representatives in Washington, and they made a big push to set up specifically mechanisms so that the towns in Connecticut and other states, which I think are very few that don't have county governments, get funds directly. And so the latest numbers are that Madison is slated to get a total of $5.3 million. And then the school system that would go directly to Madison Public Schools would be $892,000. This is based on a per population basis. It's a formula. And so these numbers aren't 100% yet. They're based on estimates. The Treasury Department actually just released at about 4 o'clock yesterday a lot more details on all this, and there's going to be a number of webinars I'm going to be attending, and lots of reading about how the funds can be used, and what the timeline would be and how they'll be distributed. But we are expecting that the town of Madison will receive this money by early June, and that we're getting prepared for that. And then the idea is we have to have a plan of how we're going to spend the money. And so that's something that I will be working closely with our long-term recovery committee, which basically is a committee that we've set up, and Bruce sits on that, and I chair it, and Lauren is an important part of that as well. has been kind of more focused on assisting businesses and assisting outside organizations throughout COVID to get, to try to keep things normal here and work on specific issues. But now we're going to try to use that as a kind of a brainstorming, discususn about how to spend this money and have each segment of the population, whether it's civic groups, community-based, religious-based, whether it's the business community, or mental health, or all these different things. We're going to put a pool of ideas together and come up with a proposal that we will then come to the Board of Selectmen to talk about and figure out next steps to get community input. And so what can be used? These are just the high level things that were in the actual legislation. There's going to be a lot more details and guidance issued by the U.S. Treasury, along with the state of Connecticut, the Office of Policy Management. And some of that did start coming out yesterday. But, the primary goals would be that one is COVID. Obviously, if there's continuing investments we need to make for COVID, or services that we need to offer. And then it's also economic effects on our local economy. And that's a very broad category. So we're going to have to figure out a little bit more what that means and what we can use the funding for. They also specifically point out premium pay for essential employees. And so that would include groups like our ambulance and our public safety officials. And then it is also an attempt to offset revenue loss that we might have encountered during the pandemic. And then making infrastructure investments in areas they highlight in the bill as water, sewer, and broadband. So these are very big, broad bust, potential uses, but there's going to be a lot more guidance coming out. And also, I will say that CCM, which is our kind of the organization at the state level that works with municipalities, is going to help us figure out what would be appropriate, what wouldn't at a town by town level in terms of spending the funding on. Some of the restrictions.
Can I just ask, you may not know this yet, but can the funds be used to reimburse the town for special appropriations that were made that were COVID related? Throughout, can they be applied to expenses that have already?
Well, it is. I think yes. Although I think a vast majority of our COVID related expenses have already been covered under other sources of funding, because we did get both FEMA, and then there was also the money that came out of, I forget what the bill was that was passed last year.
Right.
And so we've been reimbursed for quite a bit. And as we get into this, I'm going to bring Stacy back here to talk about that, like what we've submitted so far, what we've been reimbursed for. She's been tracking all this. And then we would try to find things that we didn't get reimbursed for, and try to use some of this money for that. But we've been very fortunate that we've had a lot of our costs have been reimbursed by the state. So and so just other things that the funds cannot be used for is trying to shore up pension funds. They specifically highlight that, as well as using it to offset some sort of tax cut to people. So, as a one-time kind of tax cut, a revenue offset. And then you can use these to set up to give to nonprofits or some sort of special purpose unit. So we're going to talk about that. We've been fortunate throughout this that, we've had the Madison Foundation making, incredible donations, and then the town has actually administered a lot of that. Whereas sometimes it's just been the opposite. The town has done grants to outside organizations, then those organizations have been the ones administering it. So we'll have to have a discussion about how we would envision providing that community support and what mechanism we would use. And then, as I said, the timing is just literally yesterday afternoon. So there's a lot of information that came out already, and then more to come over the next couple of weeks with assistance from CCM, trying to weed through and come up with this plan. So that's kind of where we are now, and there'll be certainly more discussion about this as we move forward with drafting a plan, bringing it to the Board of Selectmen, having community input, and coming up with a kind of long-term use of this. I know it just, from my perspective, you know, my goal would be that I want everybody in the community to feel that they had some sort of impact by this money. Whether it's a investment in something in a facility, or you know, whether it's through a program, but somehow being able to touch every segment of our population to feel that they've gotten some benefit from these funds. So, and there's a lot of different ways that can be done. So I'll leave it at that, because this will certainly be a bigger conversation as we move forward.
Peggy,
Yep.
are you aware of any additional federal government programs which might be providing incremental revenue in the future around some of these issues? Or is this really going to be our main funding bucket?
Well, this is, there's also this infrastructure bill that's being talked about. There's a couple of different ones coming out of Washington that what I think would be beneficial for us to do is use some of this money for planning dollars so that we are prepared to tap into a number of these big federal programs on infrastructure that will be coming out. From what I understand, there's going to be a big focus on coastal resiliency, and then transportation. So I think that, you know, for us as a coastal community to be able to have that list of projects that we have identified as important infrastructure needs, I think will be huge, to be ready for other bills that come out of DC, you know, in the coming, you know, 6 to 12 months. But this, I think, is in terms of COVID support, I would gather this is unprecedented. Let's face it, for the town of Madison. It is huge, and all town leaders that I've talked to throughout the state are all, you know, grateful, but we're also like, wow, okay, how do we really make sure that we use this money to its furthest benefit, and really have a big impact on our communities. And so, you know, so I think that we want to be very thoughtful, and we also want the public to be very supportive of how we spend the money. And so, and then on top of that, like I said, I think there's some things that we could use for this to set ourselves up for future funding opportunities that come down on a project, on specific projects.
Peggy, one idea would be that Aaron and I kick this around inside our facilities committee and come up with some ideas. And an immediate idea that came up that we've already talked about in the facilities committee is the emergency shelter that clearly would benefit the entire public, and this funding would go a long way to help support that. So just, you know, thinking.
No, I think those are the types of things, you know, one of the processes here would be to go through CIP, but your committee is kind of ultimately feeding into CIP, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a worthy thing, because I think there's some projects in CIP that if we could bring them forward and help fund them through this, or at least get the planning dollars funded, that helps us in the long run in terms of our tax burden, right? Because now we've been able to pull some things out of CIP, and we pay through CIP through our annual budget. So things like that we can kind of pull forward and flag, I think will help taxpayers, and then plus help get some of these important projects done sooner rather than waiting, you know, because right now we do a pay as you go, and we do savings accounts for a lot of these projects. So to be able to jumpstart those in some way, I think would be a huge benefit. And I think that the emergency shelter is one of those that absolutely would be part of the conversation.
We also had the emergency signage, which we pulled out of CIP. And
Another good one. Yeah, right.
that was directly emergency related.
The signboards.
Yeah.
Talking about, yeah. Well, that's we're actually hoping to get that covered by FEMA, another grant. So, but that we'll talk when Stacy comes and reviews kind of where we are on this. We'll talk about that. But that's one we're actually actively putting in for funding right now for FEMA reimbursement. And I think that it was now we're getting covered all of FEMA, whereas normally they only reimburse forget if it's 50% or 75%. And there was a change where for COVID related expenses, they were going to be covering 100% of the cost. So there's a lot going on. The good thing is it's all inflows versus outflows for us. So, but it is something that we need to be on top of and track, and we'll be chasing every penny we can, obviously. So more to come on this. Before I hand it off to selectmen comments, I thought it'd be helpful just to real quickly, there was 2 items that had been sent out to board members as things we wanted to add to the agenda. And so I was wondering if we could just do that now. If I can make a motion to add to the agenda item 10.9, which is an approval for special appropriation from Beach and Recreation for the amount of $41,501, and add to the agenda item 11B, which is the hiring of Holly Burke to the position of executive assistant within the police department. So this is open up the agenda to add it, and then when we get to those, we can talk about the actual things.
So moved.
Okay. And any conversation? Is everybody okay with that? You got the materials in email yesterday? Okay, all in favor of adding those to the agenda, say aye.
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 Okay, great. All right, so we'll get to those later. Okay, moving on to liaison reports and selectmen comments. Let's see, any liaison reports or selectmen comments? I guess I could just kick off that the Board of Finance last week approved the budget, and that send it to referendum. And so the referendum is Tuesday, May 18th. Just a reminder again, because I think there was a mistake in the source with the date. So luckily that's been corrected online, and just try to get the message out. We always have our referendums on Tuesday, and you can vote in person at Polson for District 1, which is where people voted in November, and you can continue to vote in Brown for District 2. And then absentee ballots are available on the town clerk's website, and you can drop those off in the Dropbox, and they'll mail you, or you can pick it up that same day, your ballot for the budget referendum. So that's the update from Board of Finance.
Just a very quick update for Madison Youth and Family Services. There's an awards ceremony tonight, coupled with their monthly meeting, to award some very deserving students and leaders for various awards that Madison Youth and Family gives out every year. So pretty excited to attend that.
Okay. Did you want to do an update on the facilities study, Aaron or Scott? Because you touched on that earlier. Any updates for that? Or you want to save that?
I mean, I think Aaron, we can sort of tag team this, but I think the only update that I would have is that I think we've made a recommendation and a suggestion about where the emergency shelters would go. And obviously that will be coming to the Board of Selectmen for consideration. I think the next stop we're going to be thinking about is some of the usage and even consideration of a master plan. I think that's still all on the table as we look to sort of the depth of the facilities in town. We obviously have a lot of them, and we would like to make sure that we're looking not only at the maintenance but the usage as well. So.
Okay. All
Did I
right.
cover that enough, Aaron? Did I hit all the points?
Yeah, I think that covered it.
I was scratching my head a little bit there. So.
I'll give a quick update. I don't have anything specific to report, but just a quick update that the Affordable Housing Committee has been, or work group has been meeting every other week, Friday mornings. And we're in the information gathering stage right now. So having speakers come. Most recently, we had members of the Guilford community who were instrumental in their affordable housing efforts, came to talk about some of the what they encountered and kind of what they learned from their experience. So that's where we're at, and we'll kind of, it's a slow process. We're trying to make sure we can gather as much information best practices, and then also reaching out to the community to get some input.
How will you do that? Would that be like a survey or?
That's what we're working on. It will be various, because there's various groups that we're trying to reach. So, but we have a lot of good resources who have David Fink, who's going to help construct something that will get us the input we're looking for.
Sounds exciting.
So it's good.
Good
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, really good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe at one point, we could have the chair come and provide, with Dave and you and do an update on kind of the process, because especially if you're gonna have a public hearing, it's great to do it beforehand and just talk about the committee and the work. And so
Yeah.
let me know when that makes sense and we can put that on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? No.
No, we're going to be honoring Chris and Russ later on in the agenda in honor of National EMS Week, and Beach and Rec has got a presentation further down the agenda today. So I'm not going to steal the thunder from all of that.
Okay. All right, great. All right, moving on to citizens' comments.
Gus Horvath has his hand raised.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't heard Gus's voice in a while.
I've been trying to be easy on you guys these days.
Nice. Be gentle.
I'm leaving it up to you and Bruce to keep things moving. Regarding the bonanza from heaven that you guys were talking about earlier, I'm biased because I've been on half a dozen building committees over the last 40 years, 45 years. So I think in that direction. But one of the things you might want to consider is the buildings that will not be affected by the proposed bonding building program. And one of the things I've done in my own home, for instance, is I switched over to very expensive filters that filter out virus. And I think you might want to take a look at the HVAC systems in the existing buildings. And I know some of them are in the ZIP program for change and removal and upgrade and whatever. But I think you might want to have your consultants take a second look at it from the point of view of what can we do to improve the air circulation, not just the heating and the cooling, but the actual volume of air, which seems to be important in this. Because reading the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times every day, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, is saying that this is going to be with us literally forever, just like the winter flu. So if we have the opportunity to use this money for improving the air circulation and the purity of the air in our public buildings, especially town hall that sees a lot of the public coming in and out, I think that's one of the things that should be on your list.
I will say that it's been an active conversation, especially with Bill McMinn, about, where do we make that kind of longer term investment? And certainly the HVAC system in this building is on CIP. So we've talked quite a bit about it, but you're absolutely right. Those are the things we got to start thinking about.
Yeah, I'm familiar with this because my son is the facilities manager for the buildings for the largest hedge fund in the world, Bridgewater in Westport. And this is one of the things he has been doing in their buildings. And now he's finding out that many of the people are going to stay remote because they really don't need to be in the buildings, and maybe cut back on the number of the buildings they have. So you can't win sometimes, but that's where I get a lot of my information from, because he's been doing this for 30 years.
It's an interesting idea, considering we're moving back to in-person meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a list as long as your arm. And I just wanted to get my oar in the water very early on.
Thanks,
Okay,
Gus.
is it okay if I go for breakfast?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Scott. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That just means we're not going to have a comment at the end of the meeting, Gus. So, good.
Okay. So any other public comment, Lauren?
That was it.
Okay. All right, great. So let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is discuss and take action to approve proclamations honoring Eagle Scouts. So this is something that, as a tradition, the Board of Selectmen does, and I know there's going to be award ceremonies. One is this Sunday, and then I think there's another one in 2 weeks. And it's an incredible opportunity just to recognize all the hard work that these kids, I should say young adults, young men have been going through, especially during COVID, to accomplish a lot of these projects. So it's a huge undertaking, and also hats off to Wayne Hubbs and the troop leaders and all the people that get these young men to this position, which is a long journey I know they go through. So I think I'll turn it over to Scott. Oh, your son was an Eagle Scout, correct?
It was. You're
That's
stealing my
okay.
thunder here. Yeah, as a proud father of an Eagle Scout, I'm honored to be able to convey and proclaim these young men as Eagle Scouts. It's a huge undertaking, as Peggy mentioned, and a lot of work. So we are incredibly proud of these individuals. I'm going to read the names off first as Eagle Scouts, and then I'll read the proclamation. So we will be honoring Brian Byrne, Tim Gagliano, Dan Ginsberg, Evan Hubbs, Christopher Kearney, Kyle Northrup, Jack Sherbin, Sam Sherbin, and Henry Wilson. And now I'll read the proclamation. Whereas the Board of Selectmen of the town of Madison hereby proudly acknowledges the outstanding award of Eagle Scout to a member of the Boy Scouts of America. Whereas throughout his commitment to community with a dedication of purpose and commitment to a high level of leadership excellence worthy of acclamation and praise by this board and the entire community. Whereas the board gratefully recognizes the tremendous efforts of this young man, it is with great pride that the board officially extends their congratulations to this newly awarded Eagle Scout and wishes him all the best of luck in his future endeavors. Furthermore, that by the powers vested in the Board of Selectmen by the state of Connecticut and the Madison Charter, we, the members of this board, hereby unanimously acknowledge the scouting achievement of the list that I read earlier, done this 11th day of May 2021 in the town of Madison, Connecticut, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, all in favor of this proclamation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And sorry, Bruce, did you want to make a comment as well?
I was going to second it, but I think
Okay.
we'll be good with approving it.
Okay, great. All right, great. Well, congratulations. And like I said, there's going to be a ceremonies coming up on this, and great job to everybody. And I think particularly
Huge
trying to do it
accomplishment.
yeah, especially during, all the restrictions and, everything that people had to go through this last year, they were still able to get it done, which is a huge accomplishment. So congratulations.
Peggy, just a question, I guess, noting the proclamation here has just got your name on it. Will we all be signing it, given we're moving back to hybrid? Or will it
Yes,
be
and yes, you normally the whole board, but because of COVID, no one was coming in. We were doing just one signature on behalf of. So we'll start normal, doing the normal routine once we're all doing in-person meetings again. So
Sounds good. Thank you.
So item number 7, another proclamation, which I just realized I don't have printed out here.
Well, I can take it, Peggy.
You got it? Okay, why don't I go ahead and discuss and take action to approve proclamations honoring EMS Director Chris Bernier and Deputy Director Russell Pearson of Madison Emergency Medical Services in honor of National EMS Week from May 16th to May 22nd. Can I get a second?
I'll read that proclamation.
Okay. Yep.
Do we need to motion it first before you read it, Bruce?
Okay.
I'll just motion it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're good.
All right. I'll second it if we need it.
Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic presented our community and the world with unprecedented challenges, and whereas Madison EMS remain ready to provide residents and visitors of Madison the care they have come to expect, and whereas Madison EMS Deputy Director Russell Pearson and Madison EMS Director Chris Bernier worked tirelessly to aid the town in emergency operations and provide resources to attain PPE and other supplies to safely treat COVID-19 patients and help stop the spread to EMS personnel. And whereas Madison had a total of 1,175 COVID cases since March 5th, 2020, and Russ and Chris pushed through fear and exhaustion to respond to a flood of critically ill patients suffering from the virus. Now, therefore, we, the members of this board, hereby unanimously acknowledge the tremendous contributions of Chris and Russ to recognize National EMS Week, May 16th through the 22nd, 2021, done this 11th day of May 2021 in the town of Madison.
Great. I just would like to comment that, going through the early days, specifically in COVID, when there was a lot of uncertainty about the disease, the transmission, how it can be transmitted, how we were very low on PP&E to protect our people in EMS. They were just, I was astounded by the level of commitment that, Madison Ambulance showed, and the professionalism throughout that whole process. And it was a really challenging time, and everybody stepped up 100% and gave full effort and put themselves behind the residents of Madison, and they served them well. And so we're very grateful for all their hard work. And
I'd just like to add that keeping the Ambulance Association operations running, Chris and Russ really put in a lot of work to keep their team safe and to make sure that they were adequately staffed to respond. And this is not to say that all of our emergency services didn't have this same problem, but we're recognizing them, especially this week. And it really has been, I think, what is the old proverb, an interesting time for them.
Yeah,
and,
indeed.
And they really have come through it with flying colors. And we are a very fortunate community to have the Ambulance Association looking out for us.
And I just think accessible too. I mean, these guys are incredibly accessible, committed to our town, and just visible, I think, in our community, which, I think is incredible. I think we're blessed. We are very lucky to have these two caring individuals looking after our community. We're just very lucky.
I think just next week, for members of the public that are watching this, stop by and say hello to the ambulance garage and congratulate them and just thank them for all their hard work. So, and I think they are doing a fundraiser, correct? They're doing their flag sales again. So if you want to continue to support them, now's the time to buy a flag and show your support for the ambulance. So I guess, so we just need to vote, right? All in favor of the proclamation as read by Bruce, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is discuss and take action to call a public hearing on May 24th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. to hear comment on submissions of the 2021 DRS Neighborhood Assistance Act Tax Credit Grant Program.
That's a mouthful.
So move.
Okay, the second?
Second.
Okay, great. So this is just relating, Lauren, can you refresh? This is relating to the, I'm going blank, the housing development, right?
No.
Oh, no.
No,
This
is the actual program through the state that allows nonprofits and municipalities to extend tax credits to people who do work or give donations to them. So as of right now, we have 2 applications that are in from nonprofits in town that would like to offer this benefit to people who would like to help with their projects. So those applications will be given to you guys before the public hearing, and then you would vote on sending those applications through at your regular meeting, which would be at 7 o'clock on that same night.
Okay, so this is, all right. I apologize. I was confusing this with something else, but this is just for the public hearing. So we'll call the public hearing and then we'll review the submissions at that time. So all in favor of calling the public hearing, say aye.
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 Aye. I forgot, we already had on the other grant, we had the hearing already.
Yeah.
So I haven't had my breakfast yet either. So, all right, next item on the agenda is discuss and take action to approve line item transfer request totaling $372,816.
So moved.
Did that get changed? Did we get a change? Because when I go to the agenda item, the number is different.
372,816, that's what I have on the agenda.
The one that Lauren sent out is
It's additional
372,816.
$5,000.
Yeah, I have 377.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
it should be
So
377.
I'll
is
propose
this
an
not-
amendment to the amount to 377,816.
Oh, I have the one that went out Friday. Is that, okay, that's what I had printed. All right, so 375.
377.
7, so another $5,000.
816.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve 377,816?
So moved.
Okay. So Stacy, if you want to kind of talk through this.
Sure, I'm not exactly sure what type of detail you have in the packet that I see that went to you. There were 3 items on the consent agenda. One was the 5,000, which was additional. Do you all see that one?
It was sent separately. Stan.
Yep. Okay, so the 5,000, essentially we're moving from defined contribution pension line item to the health insurance retirees. We had some retirees, so that line item needed more funds. We found it within the DC contribution line item, so no special appropriation. So it's a simple moving the funds from one line to the other. I'm going to skip the human resource one and go down to the registrars. Do you guys have that one, the 9,005? And that's basically cleaning up items and moving it from one account to other accounts. Again, not a special appropriation line item transfer. We're moving it from supplies ballots into wages, election support, voting machine maintenance, and supplies. So this is the budget that was inherited by the current registrars. If they created it, it probably would have been in these selected line items to begin with. So next year, we're thinking that the reallocation will happen and it'll be in the correct line items. But they did find the money needed within their budget. So the last one is a human resource line item, the 363,811. And I see Deb on here. Hi, Deb. So I can talk about it, Deb, and if you want to chime in, feel free. Basically, this is done every year. It's usually done 2 or 3 times a year where we're cleaning up salary accounts. The bulk of this line item transfer is for the police department. And I believe you have the detail behind this one. Do you have all the lines behind the 363? Yep. Okay. So the bulk of the top of the sheet is for the PD, all of his accounts. He did find amounts in certain line items. For example, salary admin, he found 36,000. Office staff, 14,000. So you could see the from accounts. He did try to cover a lot of his overtime accounts that had shortages. So I do want to say that we pulled out 2 accounts, and you'll see those later on in the agenda, which one is for overtime related to COVID, which will be a special appropriation that we will hopefully get reimbursed for. And then the other one is the overtime for special duty, which we do every year. We have an offset revenue account. It's really just the mechanics. So revenue has more than covered the amount that we'll be asking for a special appropriation. So the top part of this, you can see pretty much he covered the bulk within his accounts, or at least half. And then out of the salary adjustment line item, 26,000 is coming out of there. And that is an HR account where she budgets for these where Deb budgets for these types of shortages. And we were able to absorb that from that account. So we did not have to ask for a special appropriation. I just want to make one comment that these are estimates through June 30th. I can't it's not definite that we won't need some other small adjustments by the end of June, but we did try to project what Jack will need for the police department through June 30th. So that is the bulk of the line transfer. There's another small piece in the top half for the health department. They were short $500 or $557. That also came from Deb's salary adjustment line item. So the second half of this line transfer is looking for funds to fund the severance reserve. So if you recall, during the budget process, there's some retirements that were pretty costly that we were actually going to build in to the budget, but you all recommended that we pull that out and do a special appropriation. We were able to research all of the department's salary accounts and find funds within the budgeted accounts to move into the severance reserve. So good news is we don't need a special appropriation for this to cover these upcoming severance payments. A couple of the severance payments would be in July 1st, so it will be in the next fiscal year. But if we do this line item transfer now, it will sit in the reserve fund and it will carry over to next year when we need to make these payments. The savings really came from the senior center, mostly from them being closed. We didn't have cafe wages or bus drivers. So that was a majority of the findings. And then land use, we had a retirement there. So we had some savings, as well as youth and family services did not have a position filled for the entire year. So we were able to find within all of these individual departments about 147,000 that we can put into the severance reserve to carry over year after year. And I know maybe one of your questions will be, I thought we only needed 106,000 from the budget process. Well, the thought was, we have the savings now, let's put it into the severance. We do not lose it, it will go forward. We know of some potential retirements happening next year. So while we have it, the thought was to put it into the reserve fund now. So it will cover those potential upcoming retirements.
Yeah, this was, I think, a real, positive for us when we were able to basically pay for a lot of these severances through savings, from this year. And so we're not going to see those savings next year because we're going to be opening pretty much back to normal starting July 1 for most of our operations. But we were fortunate the timing and everything could cover a lot of these severance costs. So rather than needing a special appropriation, we're able to do this, which is great. And also just considering all the unpredictability of the last year, I think the chief has done a great job managing his budget and but able still to deliver significantly with his services to the public. And so, I think we're just happy that we can kind of come and shave off some of those needs to go to the general fund, obviously, to pay for some of the stuff, which is great. So any further discussion or questions on this? No? Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. So the next one, I'm hoping, was there another update to this long thing on the agenda? Because I guess I printed out the Friday agenda. The numbers are all the same.
The numbers should be the same, other than when you opened up for the
Yeah.
correct one. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll, I'm trying to think. Okay. So I have to read all these, don't I? All right, discuss and take action to approve the following special appropriation requests. Number one, in the amount of $161,181 to fund various capital project funds. This action will satisfy all requirements for a town meeting under State of Connecticut Executive Order 7S. In the amount of $60,000 to fund the revaluation reserve and pending Board of Finance approval. This action will satisfy all requirements for a town meeting under State of Connecticut Executive Order 7S. In the amount of $150,000 to fund the Planning Reserve WPCA Facilities Wastewater Study and pending Board of Finance approval. This action will satisfy all requirements of town meeting under State of Connecticut Executive Order 7S. In the amount of $22,225 to fund the snow removal line item due to deficits from excess weather events in fiscal year 2020-2021 and pending Board of Finance approval. This action will satisfy all requirements for a town meeting under State of Connecticut Executive Order 7S. In the amount of $38,220 to fund the police department overtime related to COVID-19 reimbursement from OPM to be requested and pending Board of Finance approval. This action will satisfy all requirements for a town meeting under State of Connecticut Executive Order 7S. In the amount of $36,106 to fund the police department overtime and pending Board of Finance approval. This action will satisfy all requirements for a town meeting under State of Connecticut Executive Order 7S, in the amount of $103,972.15 to fund emergency management expenses due to COVID-19, reimbursement from FEMA and OPM to be requested, and pending Board of Finance approval. This action will satisfy all requirements for town meeting under State of Connecticut Executive Order 7S, in the amount of $1,335.03 to fund emergency management overtime due to COVID-19, reimbursement from FEMA, and pending Board of Finance approval. This action will satisfy all requirements for a town meeting under State of Connecticut Executive Order 7S. And number 9, was a special, this is the grounds approval, right? Approve a special appropriation in the amount of $41,501 to fund the grounds equipment replacement of the beach rake, and pending Board of Finance approval. This action will satisfy all requirements for a town meeting under State of Connecticut Executive Order 7S. Can I get a second?
You have to add the 5,000. Isn't there one more that we have to add?
No.
No,
We good.
Oh, that was on the other special appropriation.
Okay.
And then,
A second.
okay, great.
What do we need?
So just real quickly, items, number 1 was the decision by the Board of Finance to infuse money into CIP through a special appropriation rather than through the budget. So that was something they had recommended in the budget. Item number 2 was also something that we had recommended as part of the budget, pulling it out of the budget and having it be a special appropriation. So this is all related to the budget that we approved. Item number 3 also is the same thing, and this is the WPCA study. That's $150,000, and we should be getting half of that reimbursed from one of the water. There's a funding mechanism from the state, Clean Water Act or something, that will pay for half of that. So snow removal, it's just kind of a normal thing that happens when we have a difficult winter. We can talk through if people have questions on overtime relating to the police department. And then the $103,000 for emergency management. Stacy, just correct me. These are all things that we're confident we're going to get reimbursed for, right? These were things, is this OPM, part of that OPM funds that we have that we're earmarking?
this is a little bit over that, Peggy, and we will be putting in the reimbursement to FEMA for the difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and if not, we always have the ARP if we have to pull some and offset it with that.
And also is FEMA, wasn't there something that came out that we're actually going to get 100% reimbursement for COVID? Right.
Yes, and that will be for eligible expenditures, though. If you recall the first request with them, they found a lot of our submissions to possibly be ineligible. So we pulled them out and got reimbursed from OPM. But as long as they approve them, from what I understand, we're getting 100% versus a 75%.
Right. Okay. So any further discussion or questions on these? No? Okay. All in favor of approving as read, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. All right. Next item on the agenda is item number 11.
Don't we have to do that 10A? Are we good? The beach and rec one? Did we open the agenda for?
Peggy read it when she did the list.
Oh, I did it. Yeah, I did it.
Yep,
Okay.
she read it.
Okay.
And that's for the rate. So, yeah. Item number 11, discuss and take action to approve the hiring of Katie Randall to the position of record specialist located within the police department. The position is union UPSU. Rate of pay is $22.68 per hour. The position is budgeted, not requiring an appropriation of funds. This position vacancy was created by transfer due to a retirement. All in favor of approving the hire, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, great. Welcome, Katie. And then item 11B is discuss and take action to approve the hiring of Holly Burke to the position of executive assistant located within the police department. This position is non-exempt. Rate of pay is grade 9, step 5, $37.45 per hour. The position is budgeted, not requiring appropriation of funds. This position vacancy was created by a retirement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Welcome, Holly. So I think this was Chris Hodges' position previously, right? Who had retired. So, okay, great. So moving on. Next item on the agenda is an update from Beach and Recreation on the development of a harbor management plan. And so we have Scott Erskine here, as well as our harbor master, I think. Has he joined, Lauren? Steve Atkins should be here.
I don't see him on the meeting.
I sent him the invitation because he said he hadn't gotten. So let me just text him to see if he's going to be joining. Let me just. Okay. Are you joining us? Okay, I know he's planning on it. So we can start talking and then hopefully I just texted him.
Maybe have Scott start and then we'll.
Yeah. And so really, right after I was elected, so this is early 2020, I sat down with Steve and Scott Erskine and Sam to talk about West Wharf. And there was a proposed discussion about developing a harbor, a plan for that harbor. And there's a grant available that could cover a lot of the improvements down there. And since then, I know there's been some changes because we got the new fireboat and then and a dock for that. And then some discussion about how do we, ensure the safety of the fireboat because we had some issues. So I know a fence was installed. So, but really this is a piece of a much broader plan that's being developed right now. And so I thought, oh, Steve, great, you're on. You missed the whole meeting. It was very fascinating. So you're probably having breakfast, so that's okay. All right, so I just was just teeing up that, we had talked a little over a year ago about the plan and the grant that, you had wanted to pursue to pay for some of the improvements done at West Wharf. And so I thought it was important. We added it in CIP, but there really hasn't been a review of what that plan is, at the board level. So I thought it would be helpful for you to talk about that with Scott, where you are in the process, kind of what the vision is for this. Okay.
You want to start, Steve?
Oh, there we go. Sorry, guys. I missed the beginning of that. I didn't know you mentioned my name. Hey, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
So give you a quick overview. I'm the Madison Harbor Master. I work for the state of Connecticut. My job is primarily to keep everybody happy out there. And Madison's a happy place, as we know. We don't have the issues of so many harbors have real issues with moorings and where they're going to go. And hey, that's my spot. No, that's my spot. No, you can't come here. We don't have any room. We got lots of room. We got a terrible harbor. We didn't lose a boat in the hurricane because there wasn't one in the water. That's our deal. You get a storm, you get out of Madison. Don't leave your boat here in a storm or we're going to find it on the beach and it's going to go in the dumpster and it's going to be a bad scene. So that's what I tell everybody who wants a mooring here. You can have one, but if a storm comes, get out of town. That being said, for years, Sam DeBurr and I dreamed about getting the fireboat. The fireboat, by the way, is the #1 source of rescue. If you're in trouble in Madison, you don't call the Coast Guard because they're not going to get there. You dial 911 and the fire department comes out and rescues you. And getting that boat there quickly in a timely fashion really will save lives. And getting it off the beach, because getting it off that pole was a slow process to get in the boat, get it underway, versus having it on a dock, driving up, jumping in and going. So having the boat on the dock is really going to save lives, no question about it. Getting those docks here was a challenge. But we even saw those docks survive a storm last fall, and they survived wonderfully, proving that that's a great space for a dock. Segue into the problems, the issues with the dock itself. The fact that the kids are swimming off the minute those docks went in, it was swarmed by 10-year-olds. They were jumping on it, swimming on it. They were having a field day. They thought that dock was there for them. And when the fireboat went on there, they spent a fair amount of time investigating the fireboat. Now, swimming in the harbor is not a great idea. I don't recommend it. Swimming on that side of the wharf is not a great idea because that's where all the power boats are. Just a matter of time till somebody's coming in with a power boat and there's kids swimming, and you know where that's going. Swimming in people like to swim to Texas Island. I don't recommend it. First of all, you're swimming through an active harbor. Forget that danger. The dangers in the tide and the currents are there remarkable. People will get into trouble with that. Now, the Beach Club has 2 annual swims at Texas Island, and we have 3 different power boats manned with lifeguards to follow the people coming and going. So back to the boat on the dock. I think that's why you have me here right now. Our initial plan for that dockage was to run docks from one end of the wharf all the way to the beach. The idea there was if we get an injured party and they come into the dock at West Wharf, we can get a gurney out to the boat from the ambulance, put the person in the gurney and wheel them right to the ambulance. That will also save lives. You know, we had an instance at the fireworks where we had an injury on the barge a number of years ago. And the initial plan for the fireworks was to bring any injured parties to the beach club. But communications got confusing. They brought him into West Wharf, and getting him out of the boat was horrible. There was blood everywhere. I don't want to go into details, but it was not a good scene. So having a dock that the boat can pull up to, that a gurney can get to, will also save lives. So the beauty of having the dock on West Wharf and the dock running all the way to the beach is we eliminate the need for a ramp. Now, ramps can get complicated with corners because they're going down on a parallel move. They can be expensive to build. Having the dock all the way to the beach eliminates the need for a special ramp. And also, it will help us in our need to protect the fireboat long term. You know, our program down there, thinking stage 2, you know, we put the dock in initially and then had to go to this process to try to get it in use, which it is being in use. Adding the dock all the way to the beach gives us the easy gurney issue and also opens the dock up for recreational use. You know, the other thing in Madison is you can pull in with a boat, but if you want to get off your boat and get to the beach, that's a challenge. You know, transient boaters have dinghies, but pulling up to a beach can be exciting and pulling up to the wharf can be exciting. The beautiful thing about a long dock, it would give them the option of having what we call a dinghy dock. They pull up to it, they get out of their dinghy, they tie their dinghy up to the dinghy dock, and they go have a cocktail at any one of our wonderful restaurants, or take the long walk to town, call Uber and have them meet them there, and we'll run downtown for supplies. So that's the longer term plan after this dock, which is why I hope you're all here today to decide on whether to make that route happen. In addition, item 3 is the establishment of a harbor management plan. Now that is that's not a quick process, as anyone who has ever done one in the neighboring towns would tell you, but it is the gateway to state money. You know, ultimately, once a harbor management plan is in place and it's overseen and it's in operation, then when the state wants to, when you want to get the money from the state, it's pretty much they write the check because your plan is already in place and there's no mystery. That's me in a nutshell.
Well, Steve, thank you for that kind of overview. I think it'll be worthwhile at one point to talk about that kind of bigger plan, because obviously that is a beach that is used a lot by the community. It is people use it as a swimming beach, as a family-oriented beach, because it's a protected area for small children to swim at. So I think that having a broader discussion about, you know, what some of the improvements would mean in terms of community use for the beach would be an important thing that we would need to talk about and understand better. Certainly I've seen the fireboat in action, and it's incredible to see how much better it is than what they used to have to do to get out there. And then what you're talking about is just basically, from what I understand, the existing floating dock that's there now would actually just go all the way to the beach, right? So you're not talking about going outward into the harbor right now. That is a longer term discussion, but you're just talking about extending it to the beach so that you can, as you said, bring people right off the boat right to an ambulance.
Exactly.
I think today was just to kind of update the board on this. And, in terms of extending the dock, the fund, remind me again, so the funding that for the original dock that was done by the town, right? For the existing floating dock.
Correct.
What was the timing in terms of trying to extend it to the beach?
Well, that was originally part of our original plan, but because of the DEP licensing, they hadn't applied for that, and they applied for what they call an emergency order, so we could get the fireboat on the dock. There's two levels of DEP. There's the follow the directions the way they want it done, but they're also on our side in a very big way. They're not out to make trouble or make our life a nightmare or tell us we can't put a dock in. They're more than happy to get that process streamlined within their parameters, but they're also willing to make amends as needed. I've been in close conversation with all of them. In my world, the beautiful thing about not having a commission or anything else is I'm in charge, so I can say, yeah, put a mooring in there. No, don't put a mooring in there. We don't need to ask anybody. That will go away with a harbor management plan. But I've enjoyed it up until now. So, but I still see the need for that plan. But that, putting a plan in place can take 2 or 3 years. It's not automatic. You don't write it up and submit it. You guys got to have a number of meetings and talk about and talk to the groups and talk about the boaters and talk to everybody and get them all on the same page before you implement that.
Is there a phasing, Steve, on a harbor management plan? I mean, is there a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, or is it literally a couple years out before we would have something in place?
Well, I think I looked to Guilford because they did a great job with theirs. They started theirs in like 2005 and didn't actually put it into place until 2010, which is a little bit longer than I like to see ours take. We don't quite have the same challenges that they have. They have a lot of different harbors, a lot of different waterfront. Ours is pretty straightforward. So I think ours could be certainly streamlined. We've got areas I'd like to see improved. The Hammonasset River is where it hits Madison. We've got some great options there for expansion, along with the East River. Not so much the East River, but we already have the town docks in place. So there is plenty of room for more improvement to our harbor management plan.
One other question while I have the mic, if you don't mind, Peggy. You talked about the 10-year-olds, getting on the dock, getting on the boat, potentially, et cetera. What do we have preventative measures to protect the fireboat, to protect the dock, to, maybe there's signage? Have you guys sort of thought about that? What did we do last year? How are we moving forward this year?
Well, the quick fix was the fence. And obviously I think that's one of the reasons you're here today. The fence was the quick fix to try to keep the kids off the dock. These kids are, since they're swimming there, they've learned they can swim out to the dock very easily. And they're still using the dock for that reasons. And that's why the fence isn't really going to be effective at keeping them off the fireboat. Our plan again, segueing to the longer dock, was then we would make actually a larger dock for the fireboat with a fence built in place on the dock. That would give them, the only option would be to swim directly to the boat, and then that little rotating camera that we all dream about when we have power out there. But I think part of the application is to bring power to the end of the dock. That would also work quite well for security. And we obviously, I'm hoping down the road that we change the swimming rules for that side of the wharf anyway, but that's again further down. So right now there's signage, there's the fence in place that's on the dock, but they have been proven not to be as effective as we would have hoped.
Kids will be kids.
It's yeah. So while we're on the subject, one of the topics that came up in the Beach and Rec meeting was the fact that there's really no ordinance to enforce to keep kids off of the boat, right? There's signage, but there's no actual town ordinance saying that swimming, getting on the boat is prohibited. And perhaps the Board of Selectmen should take up the issue of creating an ordinance that makes this a little bit more serious for the kids, for the parents that are doing this. And I don't think we've had wanton destruction, but the nature of the boat is that, you know, anybody who climbs onto it can easily disconnect or disable part of the boat deliberately or inadvertently. And of course, we would only find that out in the very moment that we need it. So the security camera is a good secondary or tertiary strategy, but we need to be looking at other strategies to keep the boat secure and safe and available. Because that's the people's lives are at stake on this. So I would propose that we consider an ordinance, and also just wanted to get a sense of timing. You know, we're talking about the fence up on the dock, and there's an aesthetic concern to that. I think that if we see it as a temporary fence and we've got a long-term plan to resolve this, that it's probably an acceptable temporary solution. But what is the timing? We don't need this plan to go ahead and move forward with a dock, right? And getting the dock.
No, we don't need the management plan. The management plan is a whole nother deal to get, you know, to a streamline, getting money from the state, et cetera. The dock plan, you know, I got to let you know that the dock plan we can implement tomorrow based on my conversations with the DEP, because we don't have a harbor management plan in place. You can just ask the harbor master if it's okay, and he goes, "It's okay, let's put it in."
So, but I guess the question is the funding. So is there funding left in the account? Because we spent a certain amount putting in the floating dock, right? That's there now. So was there funding also left over to extend the dock to the beach, or is it?
I would have to, we'd have to, I don't want to ask Scott on that, but I thought that initial amount was over $70,000, and I can't imagine we spent that on the docks we put in place.
Yeah,
Scott?
we had 50,000. And as of right now, we have $4,439 left.
So
in
we
that
spent,
account.
so we spent 46 or whatever on the existing dock.
Okay.
So given that we've got the federal money coming in, and this clearly looks and feels like not only a safety infrastructure project, but also has an economic component to it, because as we said, the
Just accessibility, yeah.
Yeah, the transients, and it is probably a small dip into the larger bucket of funds. Maybe this is one of the projects that we mark as an easy priority.
Can I back up a second from Bruce's comment?
Right.
I looked at our the book of ordinances, and under Park and Rec, in section 1455 prohibited activities, we do have it in writing that let's see, climbing of any wall, fence, building, or other structure, diving from wharves, docks, or vehicles. So it is in our ordinances that if we have signage, it should be able to be enforced.
Mm-hmm.
And we did at the end of the season, we got signs made up that we plan on putting out this spring on the docks and on the fence to give people warning.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that will help.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also, I think earlier that you're saying that the new dock that's extending all the way to the beach, how this is going to look, I'm questioning, is going to have some sort of fencing on it, is what you're saying. So you said that no. Okay, so this is where I'm a little confused. So
if I might interrupt, any fencing would just be for the fireboat. You know, docks, we don't I'm around
Okay.
docks all day long, and we don't normally have to have any security problem with them. I mean, you can check with the towns and their fireboats.
No, but I thought
Those
you
are-
said it was
those-
going to be on the dock.
Well,
said that-
our idea was to make a larger dock for the fireboat and then have security measures in place.
Right.
Most fireboats have a locking door, for lack of a better question. It's a bigger boat. It has a secure cockpit, so to speak, so they can lock it. Ours is a smaller boat without that capability. I guess the fire department is certainly dreaming of the larger boat down the road also, but and there's plenty of federal money for that too, I might add. So that might be a question down the road on how to better secure the boat. Normally a fence isn't the right way to go because anybody can swim up to the boat.
Yeah, I'm just envisioning what that would look like, and
Yeah.
it doesn't aesthetically, do any justice either. Relative
To that point though, is there a way that we can get a rendering, a drawing, something to, again, I'm not a doc guy, so, full disclosure. So I would love to just have a mental picture of what, your aspirations might look like for this thing so that we can get our arms around it. I just have no sense, longer dock, fireboat tucked into one part of it. I don't know. I'm just trying to visualize what you're talking about.
Right.
I hear you. I'm happy to spearhead that. If you guys can direct me to somebody, I can. Let's see. I'm thinking architect, somebody who can draw. That's not me.
So, but I think part of
You're a
the
dock guy.
overall harbor management plan would have to have, a schematic of what the wharf would look like and where the fireboat would go and what protection measures would be in place. And I think this is, right now we have a temporary measure to just get us through potentially, this next couple of months.
And is our temporary measure in place now and it's all set? I mean, are we
Yeah.
good? Okay.
We have not put the fence back up yet.
It's a removable fence, so it's a temporary fence that they can put back. They took it down for the season because there was no boat
Yeah,
there.
we made it, we made it that way.
But it
Yeah.
is
Okay.
Now we
going
can
back up though.
disconnect it, but
But
Yeah.
Scott, it is going back up. I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
We will need it for now, but then I think the question is, do we do another what do we do if we extend the dock? Is that a temporary extension or is it a permanent extension? I think thinking all this through, I think to Bruce's point too, that any of these improvements could be flagged for the American Rescue Plan funding because it would, I think, qualify under a couple of different measures. So I think we just want to know what we're doing, the plan, and then if we need to use a consultant to design this, I thought Steve, I
Wouldn't
just
the dock
remember
company do
seeing.
that? Wouldn't the whoever we hire or a potential vendor, wouldn't they give us a rendering?
Certainly, possibly. Scott, can you want to?
I think what we would probably want to do is gather together the key players and then talk to the engineer that I used for the CAM permit, which is Mike Harkin, Harkin Engineering, and because it has to be designed right, so we're just not putting something in that's just gonna blow up on us.
Well, yeah. Well, and I'm thinking it's just also, these are phases, right? Phase one is dealing with the fireboat issue. And then phase two is other plans potentially. And then we need to talk to the community about that. Do people want a bunch of boats? Do we want to make it a boat beach only? I think there will be some resistance and people concerned about that. So I think we need to talk about what that means for that part of West Wharf. And it's easier to do if there's a visual, certainly, and a plan, which I thought, Steve, you had that, like a whole schematic. I thought I remember seeing
Well,
more,
I had a dream.
maybe I just pictured it. You were so good at describing it.
That was just a dream. I got to tell you, that was just my dream. That wasn't necessarily Scott's dream or the town of Madison's dream.
Okay.
That was just a little fantasy thing I had going on.
I mean, we did have a master plan company come in back in '81, and I have a concept. Yeah, I'm sorry. We have a concept of a dock system for the wharf, and the idea at that point was to pull the boats off of the mooring posts,
Mhm.
which would end up freeing up water. So it would be a sheltered cove, but you wouldn't have all the ropes and the boats right there. The boats are out further,
Mhm.
which could work because you could do a buoy line to keep people from going out too far. And it would be just like it would be a wading beach.
Yeah.
That's basically all it is, and you wouldn't have the ropes. But it was
Okay.
small. I think we increased the amount of boats by maybe 6. So instead of 12, you have 18 boats, but it's all for smaller boats. It's not for the 27 footers. These are like 18 footers, 16 footers. And
Well, I think it's really going to be, let's get a working group together,
Sure.
and start putting together a proposal that we would envision doing. And then,
Yep.
we could then figure out, step one is getting the firebolt situation resolved,
Right.
and what funds would be required for that. And then the bigger picture plan for the whole area.
Just a couple of final thoughts. Scott, where are we at on the fireboat replacement? Do you know offhand?
I don't know.
I know it's in.
That
I know it's
that's
in-
one
in
that we could
CNRE.
actually pull forward. I think that's
So-
like 2 years from now, and I know there's some interest in using funds for that and pulling that
And I'm
forward.
wondering if we shouldn't reevaluate the design specification of that boat to
Yeah.
take into account that it's going to live in the water now, and ultimately the solution is to be able to lock the boat, right? Well, I don't think we can build a fence tall enough to keep kids off of it. So we need to harden the boat to that type of innocent mischief. So I would propose that we relook at the design specs for the boat to make sure that it's suitable for this eventuality.
I think
The
that
other
I
thing I'm
think
going to
they.
propose is that with the start of the beach season, we do some sort of public awareness as residents and visitors come in to use that beach, either a handout flyer or signage at the check-in that, that's a fireboat, it's a safety thing, there's a town ordinance, you're not allowed on it. You're not allowed to swim on it. Please keep your kids off of it, whatever that language needs to be. I think we can, a little public education can go a long way to help us with this.
I would agree.
I
and
think they were. I think I can't really talk to what the fire department is looking at, but I believe what you were mentioning is in fact what they're looking at. It would be a hard cabin. So I think that will all be addressed with their new vessel. So.
Yeah, I know that that was, I think we had some internal discussions about that, is that something that could get pulled forward?
I think it's I think it's in my book, it says replacement in 2022.
Yeah, that's what I
I
thought.
don't know if that's changed.
Yeah, so that is something. So,
We discussed
good
it in
discussion,
CIP, I
'cause-
know that.
pardon?
It came up in CIP.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that we were talking about American Rescue Plan funds, that was something that might, if we look at trying to pull some things out of CIP, that was one of them that seemed like a real good one to do. Now, if we talk about the harbor management plan, we make sure that we get a boat that fits with the harbor management plan, to Bruce's point, that we can secure, and then we don't have to worry about fencing and stuff. So that could be a real positive for the whole plan. Because you're right, I think fencing is just, it's impractical, and it's also not very nice to look at when you're sitting down there either. So
it's an imperfect solution. So I guess probably what we need to do is just make sure that we keep this as relatively high on our priority list of things to do. If for no other reason, it looks like it's a pretty simple thing to resolve.
Yeah, and I know Scott was trying to just address an immediate problem when the fencing was put up, and we have something that works for now, and then we'll try to find a long-term solution. So I think that if everybody's good, so this is to be continued, and then I think Steve and Scott, and probably involving Austin, we should have a conversation about moving this kind of overall plan forward, and then what that would entail. In terms of hiring somebody, a consultant, professional to do it. And then ideally, as you said, some of this we might even get reimbursed from other sources. If the state does offer, I thought that there was like a grant out there that would cover the cost of the plan development when we spoke a year ago, but maybe I misunderstood that. It sounds like you're saying you have to have the harbor management plan first before you can go for reimbursement for other things.
I don't think that's the case. I think there is money out there.
Yeah.
I think the harbor management plan simplifies it down the road, but it's not required right now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, great. And if you want to,
are we sure the boat isn't in the 21-22 budget? I just have this recollection of CIP, and Aaron, maybe catch me on this one, but I thought it was in the current budget coming up July 1st.
We can look into it. I recall it being another year out because Stacy and I talked about should that be one we pull forward when we were just talking about CIP generally for American Rescue Plan funds, but we'll look into it. But I think it's interesting to, I don't know if the fire guys think about the security issues as much as now we're having a more general discussion that we can help guide them in terms of the selection of a boat too. Because I didn't.
Oh, they're thinking about it.
Well, now they are, but yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I know that they had something, identified that they were interested in, but they might want to relook at that now with all this. So actually, I think it's the next item, if we're good moving forward, the next item on the agenda does also involve Steve. And this is to discuss potential funding needs for public safety resources for the July 4th community events. And I'd like to invite Chief Drum and Sam DeBurr, if they're here, our emergency management director. And so I know there's, been a lot of discussion in the community about, are we going to have the fireworks? Are we going to have the parade? Where are we on this? And I think we've had a lot of internal discussions about this as well, about, where are we with COVID, and are we at a point where we feel large scale events would be safe and appropriate for the community at this point? And I think that, it's a little bit of a question mark about where we're going to be in July, but the town has obviously done extraordinarily well with our vaccination rates. We're one of the top 10 in the state right now in terms of members of the public vaccinated. And I think the concern had always been, and just from my perspective, is that that's adults. And a lot of these events that we hold involve families and children. And interestingly, yesterday, they approved vaccination for 12 and up for the Pfizer vaccine. So we're going to start seeing more younger people getting vaccinated, really starting very soon. And so, we had a meeting yesterday. Steve Atkins represents Madison Fireworks, right? I guess that's your official hat now, right? Not Harbor. Well, I guess Harbor Master and leader of the fireworks. And we had a good discussion yesterday about, I think all of us want to see this happen for the community. We just want to make sure that we think we can do it safely and not create an event that's going to be, just out of line with where we are with in terms of the pandemic. And so we talked about trying to make this a Madison focus event. Normally this is a destination event, the fireworks. For this people all over Connecticut come. And we have shuttle buses, and we're bringing people into the surf club. And so I think that in order to keep it a more manageable size and try to keep the crowd size down, we talked about different strategies to try to reduce the visitor flow into Madison for the 4th of July fireworks event. And in order to do that, it's going to require additional resources for public safety. We budget every year for this event, but I think this year we would need to control parking a lot more. and try to, ensure that things don't get overcrowded. And so that might require some more resources. So that's why I think I wanted to talk about, at the board level, that I think if the board is supportive of giving, the public safety additional funding if needed, they're going to try to put a budget together. We can make this happen, but we're going to have to spend a little more money to make sure that we can control traffic and crowds better and try to mitigate the situation a little bit better. So, I'd be curious to hear what, and right now we're talking about fireworks, but what other board members think about the town holding the fireworks.
So I really would like our discussion to be how do we get to yes conversation? What needs to be true to allow us to have all of this? I think, we've got a big transition coming up on the 19th with the expiration of the executive orders. We've got now over 70% of the residents of Connecticut have at least one vaccine. So I'm in favor of us trying to figure out and if we need to fund how to have these 4th of July activities.
I'm supportive as well. I'm supportive of trying to do the activities, but doing them in a safe way. And I would look to Sam, Jack, Scott, Steve, and others to guide us on if that is even possible. But obviously, we want to do it in a a very purposeful way here to ensure the safety of the public.
Can you share some of the things that you've been thinking about that would need to be implemented? Chief John, or
I'll kick it off. How's that?
okay.
Generally, what we do is you have the diversion safety points down to closer towards the beach, we'll say south of Route 1. Mindful of economic development, all the businesses in town, all the people's guests, but also the influx of other folks from outside the community that attend the event. That we have any one of the beaches, you have 8,000 to 9,000 people standing, let alone they're parking their cars anywhere north of Route 1 and walking south. So if we're going to truly make this somewhat of what's called a community event, I guess we're going to have to extend out those diversionary safety points closer towards the highway, same amount of personnel, and somehow be cognizant of and mindful of the businesses that are operating, particularly on Route 1, during the event. So it's going to take a little change as to how we normally set up for the fireworks. I'm probably going to have to use additional personnel just towards the business for people to access the businesses. I think we're going to have to get the word out early on to the community that this is a community event and that this community event and not necessarily go external to the town with a lot of advertising. If that helps.
And also we won't be having the shuttle buses from, the Route 79 lot, the commuter lot, as well as the train station lot and Stop and Shop. Like normally there would be bus service, and actually the bus service pulled out of that, not feeling that they wanted their drivers to be in that kind of situation. And so that's really, we don't have the capacity to shuttle people in. And so we just need to get that messaging out. So people that are normally used to coming down and taking that bus and parking, those lots are all going to be, I don't know if we're able to make them off limits because some of them are state parking lots, but at least there's not going to be, help with transportation for those people. And we need to do a lot of signage and notification ahead of time about that.
I think we all want to do this safely. I guess what we're looking for, some identification of the resources, both human and dollar resources, that would be required to do this thing safely.
And I think they're putting together kind of a budget that, like I said, we normally budget for this, so this would be incremental to that. And my thought was they could come back at the next meeting and just give some rough idea of the figures. I don't think we're talking, mind-blowing numbers here, but I think they need to be rest assured that they can get, plan and do what they need to do and not worry about, getting pushed back in terms of the funding later from the board.
And one of the other things we talked about is extending the hours for the beach passes,
Mhm.
probably like 8 o'clock. So you're gonna have to have some extra, maybe we got an outside security guard firm to sit at the gates with these, with our people so that they're not taking a beating. I'm sure that they're gonna get, we knew how it was last summer when people wanted to come in and they, didn't,
Hmm.
we're required to have a beach pass and so on and so forth. So I think that's where some of our, money's gonna go. We don't know how much that's gonna cost yet.
Just for that evening, Sam, or?
Just for that evening.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just to extend the hours so that you need a sticker or you would have had to have bought a parking pass, a visitor parking pass, which we are capping this year to get into the surf club. So normally that gate is wide open at 5 o'clock, right? On 4th of July. So people come in after that. So this is going to require more planning by people who want to be there.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the things that we're talking about, the strategies.
So
Peggy, was it your intention that we are also talking about the parade at this during this conversation this morning?
Yes. So there's
okay.
two. Real quickly though, I don't know if Aaron has another question on the fireworks.
Well, I was just wondering about the people that take the shuttles from the various parking lots. Do we know, are those typically people from out of town? I'm just wondering if at the same time that we're trying to limit or put these restrictions in place, are we going to be offering other alternatives so that members of the community can access in other ways that we would want them to, not parking in places that we don't want them to park.
We talked about, I think that, if you're local, you're going to have a beach sticker. So you got to plan your day if you want to get a good spot for the fireworks, and working with neighbors and family and friends and carpooling and all that. I think people can coordinate that. The other thing, it just was an idea that I could be way off here, as I was thinking about, Salt Meadow Park and how visible the fireworks are from Salt Meadow. So that if residents, can't get into the surf club, there's still an opportunity to go to Salt Meadow. Because I know it's a great view of the stars there, but I'm not sure angle wise and everything, it may not be great. So those are just some ideas we were talking about. We're not, finalizing that. Hammonasset is also will allow people to stay for the fireworks, which they've done in the past. And we confirmed from Deep that this year that if you go to Hammonasset, so there is an opportunity for other people to go. They could just, the view is not going to be as great, but you can still see them from that beach. And so we did confirm that they will be opening and allowing people to stay in the park for the fireworks on July 2nd, which is when this is not going to be on 4th of July. Another point, it's Friday, which might help too in terms of keeping crowds down. And our goal, once again, is just not having a lot of crowding. That's really what our goal is, right? So keeping the numbers down. And the other thing we did find out is other towns are doing fireworks. Guilford's having fireworks, Brantford's having fireworks, but they're spread out on different days. And there are other places throughout the state. So we wouldn't be the only fireworks show going on. So people, I think the message is people try to stay as close to home as possible, and enjoy fireworks from their own towns.
Are we the only town though on that particular day that's doing it? On the
We
shoreline?
don't, possibly. I don't know anybody doing July 2nd yet, which is a Friday. I think, I want to say West Haven's doing them 4th of July. A lot of towns are still in the planning phases of this. We know Guilford's is the week after, and Brantford's is the weekend before.
I can get a list from the state once the applications are in.
Yeah, because they have to get permitted. And maybe just shifting gear real quickly with the parade, we also did speak to the Exchange Club about the parade. And I think this is the other piece that we are hopeful to do the parade, I think, but we just are thinking about guidelines and strategies to make the event safe for the marchers. And possibly, keeping it more of a community event. Once again, not having groups from throughout the state march in the parade, but have it be more of a Madison centric parade with just local organizations. And then possibly, maybe limiting by age and not having some of the younger children because they aren't vaccinated march in that, or requiring them to wear masks or whatever. But we were talking about taking the next couple weeks to come up with that kind of guidelines for the parade to use for planning purposes. And they're also trying to assess who wants to actually march, because some groups maybe just still don't feel comfortable doing that. And so they can get a better sense of what their numbers would look like.
Peggy, I feel a little silly asking the question of what date will the 4th of July parade be, but is that part of the discussion?
I think the intention is to have it on the 4th. They will have it on the 4th. It's a Sunday. And, the good thing is they're not the same day as the fireworks. So, and then the concert, from my understanding, they had actually decided a while ago not to hold the concert on the green because they had to make a commitment, I think, quite early this year with the symphony. And so they chose not to do so. So right now there's not a plan for the concert on the green. So it would just be the 4th of July fireworks on Friday night and then the parade on Sunday. So I think that, from what I'm gathering from the board is that there is support to find a way to make these happen. And if it involves extra resources, that we would be supportive of that so we can offer these events to the community. Sounds like, I don't want to put words in everybody's mouth, but is that, Aaron, do you agree with that? Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah,
And Scott?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So I think from there, the idea is just come back with we'll have a better detail of what the plans are, and we'll coordinate with the fireworks and the parade folks and come up with a plan and get the messaging out to the community. So, but I think we're all ready for this and deserve it. So I know. I think it's going to be a really nice 4th of July. Let's just hope it doesn't rain, right? So
I'm in charge of that.
Yeah, you're the weatherman now too?
I got the handle on the weather. I'll
All
take
right.
care of the weather.
All right.
Okay. Good. Can you also put in a request for no hurricanes then this summer, please? Or
Oh,
tropical
we don't
storms?
use the H word during the season, Peggy. First rule, we don't use the H word.
Okay. I don't want any more states of emergency. Let's just say that. So I've had my fill. All right. Well, with that, to be continued, but we'll figure this out and make sure we got a plan to make it happen. So item number 14 is review proposed town policies following expiration of the governor's public health emergency declaration on May 19th. So I know Lauren had sent out to the board a discussion about our meetings, so we can talk a little bit more about meetings first. The Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and Board of Education, I think intention is to start holding in-person meetings after May 19th. And so we have been working on a technology setup in the 2 main rooms that these boards use, which is the fishbowl room and then the Hammonasset room. And that would enable people to attend in person or via Zoom, and as well as board members if need be. Although I think the goal is right now to have the board come together in person. The town policy, what our emergency operations team is planning to do is to keep in force the indoor mask mandate as well as the social distancing plans, even post May 19th. So that means our room capacities would be reduced from what we would normally see. And I think the idea here is to create a safe environment, because we're still, not everybody's fully vaccinated yet. And then ease ourselves into kind of lifting those over the summer. So we've come up with a capacity. Sam's worked, using 3 foot, we're using 3 foot social distancing now guidelines, which the CDC is kind of endorsed, and that's what is being implied, I think, in the schools soon. And so we came up with kind of how many members of the public can come to each of the rooms. And we would request that people just register for one of those spots if they want to come in person. And then otherwise they can continue to participate via Zoom. So this will be an experiment, similar to our town meeting, but hopefully it won't be the same process. So
you know, if you do want to come to a Board of Selectmen meeting, and our next one is May 24th, correct, in the evening, there'll be a place where you just register and say, I want to come in person, and then we will cap that. And I don't know what the room capacity is now for Hammonasset, or not Hammonasset, the room A, Lauren?
It's about 30 people, and that includes you guys and staff. So right now I have it set up on the website to allow for 20 members of the public. And when they go to register, actually, they'll be able to see if there are still spaces available. It'll say a number -20. So if other people are registered, they'll be able to say, you know, they'll be able to see how many spaces are left, or they can add themselves to a wait list. And then what'll happen is if someone drops off being able to attend, I would go into the wait list and move people over.
Okay, so, and so I recognize this might seem a little cumbersome to the public, but I think the intention is just to start with this, and then eventually we would lift this, but maybe get through the end of June, and then we'll reevaluate where we are. But this is going to be kind of like step one. The other boards and commissions that we have, which we have like over 60, I think. So is, you know, something that we don't have the ability to accommodate hybrid for every board and commission that meets, just because it requires technology in different rooms. And we're working on getting that. But I think that we're going to have to figure out a way, and we've been told that the state might extend the ability to do remote only after May 19th. Now, that's next week, so we haven't heard that yet. So we're hoping that we can at least extend virtual for all the other boards and commissions for another month or two, while we continue to kind of figure out the technology piece of this. And Art Sickle and his team has worked hard to come up with different options that are affordable, so we're not going out and spending a fortune on this. And I think we have some pretty modest ways to address this in some of the conference rooms here. But right now, the goal is to have just the 3 major boards meet in person, and then have all this other, and then planning and zoning is a whole nother complicating factor because of the number of people that they have at their meetings. And so that's one we are working on also. And we're hopeful we can keep a Zoom for at least another month until we sort that out, because they get 100 people at their meetings. And, you know, there is a desire a lot of times when applicants actually want to be in person, and bring in their advisors, and, you know, so it gets a lot more complicated, and there's a lot of document sharing and presentations. And so we're working on a strategy for planning and zoning. And then in terms of the only other thing is room rentals. We will be pretty much available to rent with social distancing capacity restrictions starting July 1st, all our facilities except for the senior center. We are waiting until September 1st to rent out the senior center. We're working on different programming there. So the senior center will be opening up for programming July 1st, and a lunch will not be a sit down served lunch, but we're going to be doing boxed lunches. So we wanted to kind of let the senior center have a little bit more time to plan out. And if you want to rent, like the surf club, that's available for rental now, and especially outdoor, there's no restrictions in place for outdoor. And if you want to do the surf club building, we just have a capacity limitations on that. So the state was supposed to be coming out with some better guidelines for people, but I think we're just in this period of flux where there's a lot of unknowns. So we just said, okay, let's set a plan. Here's our policy, and then go forward. And then, you know, we'll update it or change it if things change at the state level. So I don't know if anybody has questions on that right now. Anything for Lauren? Because I know she'd sent some stuff out to you guys, so. Okay, all right, well, moving on, and that's to be continued, but we'll look forward to our May 24th meeting in person.
Exciting.
Yeah. Last item is just a review anticipated timeline for possible changes to town floodplain ordinance. Let me just share my screen real quickly, because I just think, you know, there's been a lot. I know the board has had a lot of discussion. What is going on here?
What are you seeing on your
We can see
screen?
that, we can see the slide, it's just we see the sorter too.
Okay, yeah.
Fine.
I don't know what is going on with this. Hold on. Okay, and here we go. Okay. So I just thought it would be helpful to reflect on what we've done already, because there's been a lot of meetings and a lot of public comment and a lot of, the board has gotten a lot of emails. So just to talk about kind of the timeline. Back in September, the Coastal Resiliency Commission actually had been spending months before September working on this and had come and presented to the Board of Selectmen on what they felt were changes that needed to be made to the floodplain ordinance, and made a recommendation to us in September. And then internally, from September to January, there were different discussions that had been held with town employees, just some research. CRC held some, had different discussions. And the Board of Selectmen then called a public hearing on their proposed revisions on the Coastal Resiliency's proposed revisions to the floodplain ordinance. And that was a very well attended. I think we had like 100 people on that public hearing. And that's when people really started getting engaged to the public. There was a lot more information out there. And, you know, I know there was petitions that were sent and everything else that had developed from there. And so after that, the Coastal Resiliency Commission took a lot of that to heart and the concerns of the public, and went back and reviewed and made some additional amendments. And then they voted on a revised recommendation to the board. And then the town employees reviewed that and came back with their comments and presented at the April 26th meeting what they felt were problematic with some of the recommendations perhaps, or how to just tighten some of the language up or make the process a little bit more simpler, because they're the ones that have to implement and regulate the ordinance. So you had feedback from our public works director and our building inspector. So that's kind of, you know, it's been a dialogue going on since September. It's been evolving. And so I think the next thing is, you know, people are wondering, well, what's next? So where does this go next? And I think, first of all, we just want to assure the public there's been, you know, commitment to, you know, recognizing all the public feedback, and also, you know, being open about when decisions are going to be made on the final floodplain ordinance. So, so in terms of his next steps, I know that Scott is working with Aaron on coming up with a kind of absorbing all this public input and the latest draft that was, or recommendation that was sent to CRC, to come up with some perhaps, you know, additional amendments and recommendations that would be presented to the Board of Selectmen. So Scott, I don't know if you just want to talk through the next steps you guys are kind of envisioning on this.
Yeah, so we're in the process. We've submitted some questions, at least early on, to the town attorney, specifically to Ira Bloom, who's an expert in sort of the environmental impacts and floodplain ordinances and all that kind of stuff. So he and one of his partners at Bircham and Moses are in the process of getting back to us with a response. And then Aaron and I were going to plan on meeting with them to sort of review their responses to better understand what their recommendation might be back to us. You know, and some of the questions surround things like, you know, what is the minimum compliance that we have to be that needs to be in place here? You know, what are we complied to do? So you know, we'll get into a dialogue with them once we get some responses back from them. I think we're expecting something this week, and then we'll come back to this board and have that discussion about the input and how that might, you know, start to move us in a direction of a proposed ordinance change.
And then I think the idea would be that the board would then kind of come up with its next recommendation to changes, right? And then you would have another public hearing on that.
Yeah, so I mean, absolutely. I think we've committed to a public hearing at this point, and you know, I certainly would like to hold firm on that. I think we owe the public, once we come to some level of consensus as a Board of Selectmen, sans you, Peggy, to what we think is the right answer. Let's, you know, engage the public and make sure that the public understands what we're thinking, and have an opportunity to then, provide some comment. I mean, clearly, this petition that's out there is, I think, in the neighborhood of upwards of 500 plus names now at this point. So, the public is engaged, and we want to make sure that we're listening to the public and, ensuring that they're a part of the process, which I think we've done so far.
Okay, great.
So what, do we have a general guideline, a timeline for when we want these next steps to occur?
I mean, I think that's really a decision of the boards. I would think that you want to, continue to move forward on this and target maybe the end of the summer to have something final to vote on. Because by the time you get through, you provide feedback to the board, you guys come up with some sort of recommendation, then you hold a public hearing, there's notice periods that have to happen with all that. And then you want to reflect on additional public feedback from the revised proposal. So I would think that by timing wise, you'd be looking at the end of the summer, for a final conclusion.
Yeah, I think that's great aspirationally. I think that sounds good. Obviously, there's nuances that happen along the way here that we'll have to work with, that depending on the feedback we get and the conversation that we have as a board.
Right, and the conversation we have with the public, I think it's going to be important for us to get this right, given the impact
No doubt.
this could have on homeowners. So I think that we need to be prepared for seeking and soliciting public input, and then considering that input and adjusting as necessary. And our normal course of events would ultimately lead us to a vote on the Board of Selectmen. I'd like to throw out there that we might consider sending this to a town meeting instead, as the ultimate test of have we accurately taken the pulse of the community. I'm not aware of anything that prevents us from resolving this at town meeting. And again, my goal is that we're getting this right, and we're in alignment with the community. So I say we stick a pin in that and consider it as an option.
We can, and Bruce, to that point, we can discuss that with Ira and his team too, and just get some counsel on, whether that makes sense given the type of issue that we're wrestling with here. So I think it's a great point.
I think it always provides, it's nice to know the community is 100% behind whatever decision you make. Right?
Absolutely.
Town meeting can offer that. The only, caveat I would say is are you setting a precedence for things, for ordinances? And that's just something to talk about and think about. Are you now saying, okay, is that the benchmark? Every time we do an ordinance, we would have a town meeting. So just things to think about.
Yeah, fair point. We will discuss.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peggy, for bringing this up.
Okay, great. So I think that is it in terms of business. So just move on real quickly. Item number 16, tax abatements.
I'll move refunds in the amount of $1,032.51.
I find it interesting that Bruce always has that as his finger.
Because I know that at the end of the meeting, everybody starts shuffling through their papers looking for it. So that's the first thing I go to.
I know it's always like, oh, you think I'd have it down by now, but yeah, I'm always like, oh yeah, the tax. So I second that.
Nice.
And all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, great. Citizens' comments.
I don't know if we have any left. I don't think we have any left.
No one has their hand raised.
Okay, great. I think that's the first in a while. Usually we're loaded down with them. All right, great. I guess, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
All right.
Have a great week.
Have a good week.
See ya.
Bye-bye.